Hey there, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the second and hopefully the last fully virtual IBEC annual meeting of the members. My name's Scott Hinesley, and for the next maybe hour or so, I will remain the current president of IBEC. I'd like to go ahead and call our meeting to order, and to do that, I'd like to turn things over to Amy Peavy to read Article 21. Amy, take it away.
Thanks, Scott. Here's Article 21, Antitrust Compliance Policies and Procedures. Section 1, Jurisdiction. These policies and procedures apply to all meetings of the membership, board and committees, other meetings sponsored by IBEC, and all meetings attended by representatives of IBEC and to IBEC employees in all of their activities within the scope of their employment. Prohibitions and violations. Discussions of prices or price levels are prohibited. In addition, no discussion is permitted of any elements of a company's operations which might influence price. It is a violation of the antitrust laws to agree not to compete. Therefore, discussions of division of territories or customers or limitations on the nature of business carried on or products sold are not prohibited. Boycotts in any form are unlawful. Discussions related to boycotts are prohibited, including discussions about blacklisting or unfavorable reports about particular companies, including their financial situation.
Awesome. Amy, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So now we have the report of the president, and holy cow, I didn't plan for any of this. I didn't anticipate any of this, and it's been a wild ride, but it's been a fun ride. I want to give you a little bit of background of my participation on the board. So I served as the director of Region 2 for 2 years before running for Secretary Treasurer. And when I was elected as Secretary Treasurer, I had my first board meeting after our meeting of the members. And at the end of that meeting, we were notified, the executive committee was notified that the then executive vice president was retiring. So I sort of looked at that as kind of strike one against me. So we went through an exhaustive search. We found his replacement. And after about 18 months, we were notified by his replacement that that person too would be leaving. So I kind of took that as strike two against me. So we went through the whole process again. And lo and behold, we found Brian, and Brian's a perfect fit for IBEC. And so Brian's in for several months. We start to hit our stride, and then strike three, COVID hits. So part of me is beginning to think that maybe I'm a little bit of bad luck for the association. I will tell you, in a little bit of good news, in a short while, I'll no longer be president. And because of that, I expect some really good things for IBEC under Ted Sheridan's leadership going forward. I kid, I've enjoyed this, but you know, it has been a fun ride. It has been a wild ride. I want to congratulate the IBEC team for a job that an awesome job that they've done during my tenure, not just as president, but on the board as a whole. They've been a pleasure to work with. They've really made my job as president much more enjoyable than what it could have otherwise been. So for that, I thank you tremendously. One of the things that I think we all need to understand is that during this, IBEC has continued to provide the services that our members have come to expect and enjoy. We've held the annual convention. We held the Building Enclosure Symposium. We held the Canadian Building Enclosure Symposium, all virtually. All of our educational offerings are available virtually. Many of you are already taking advantage of that. And here's the interesting thing, and I bet many of you didn't know this. A lot of the IBEC team has done this while working from home. And so even though outside of the machine, you don't get to necessarily help see how things are working, you get to reap the benefits. And so kudos to Brian and the entire team for making this happen. Lots of need to make changes on the fly. We keep using the word pivot, and it's truly applicable in this instance. And a lot of the things that not just the staff, the board, everyone has learned during this pandemic, these are things that we'll be able to take forward and utilize components of those in future events just to make IBEC better. So again, to the IBEC team, thank you. I couldn't have done it without your support. None of us could have done it without your support. I also want to give or show my deep appreciation to the board. The board has really helped take the edge off this weird term for me. You guys have been awesome to work with. We've had opportunities to get together safely at a distance, and some of us have participated virtually, but it's been great to see you when we can. Ted Sheridan, I congratulate you. I look forward to serving under your leadership as president. I will point this out. I'm embarrassed to say that I've been a pretty horrible steward of this IBEC chain that Bob Card bequeathed to me. But rest assured, it will be in the mail soon, Ted, and hopefully you can take up where I fell short. But look forward seriously to serving under your leadership. Again, Bob Card, you've been someone that I've looked up to for a long time, having worked with you over the past several years and especially over the last year. I'm going to miss our opportunities to hang out, but know that you know how to get in touch with me. I look forward to our future meetings together again. But thank you to your service to IBEC. One thing that I do want to mention is that if you all look up here in the corner, you'll see sort of your dashboard. There's an opportunity there for you to ask questions. And if you click on the tab that says questions, you'll have an opportunity to type your questions in there. And at the end of this event, we will take member questions. We don't plan to read anyone's names, so feel free to ask any question that you can. And a lot of times you'll notice that we get several questions that are very similar to one another. So when that happens, we'll try to merge them into a single question, and hopefully our answer will provide the necessary response that you're looking for. But if there's something that you feel like we haven't gotten to, don't hesitate to reach back out to any of us after this event, and we'll do everything that we can to make sure that your questions are answered. So with that, look, there's a million people that helped me stay sane through all of this, and I appreciate everything from all of you. It's been a great time that I'll look back on fondly, and I look forward to seeing all of you all in person in September. Thanks so much, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Giffen for the report of the second vice president. Chris?
Hey, thank you, Scott, and thank you for your leadership this past year. It's been truly a pleasure working with you. You've done a spectacular job given the circumstances. I know we're all anxious to get together, so I'm pleased to report that we'll be meeting in person in September, and we look forward to seeing everybody in Phoenix, Arizona for the 2021 International Convention and Trade Show to be held September 15th and 20th. The convention offers 24 vetted educational sessions and 2 auxiliary seminars in person, as well as online access to pre-recorded presentations. The trade show offers the attendees the opportunity to meet and learn from manufacturing representatives from across the building enclosure industry, providing valuable insight into the future direction of the roofing and waterproofing and exterior walls. You may earn up to 33 continuing education hours when you attend. We look forward to hosting all of our traditional meeting and networking opportunities, which include product demonstrations, the region meetings, honoring our dedicated volunteers at our annual awards luncheon, and celebrating a year that has been like no other under the esteemed leadership of our president, Scott Hinesley, at the President's Banquet. As you are all aware, we are still in a pandemic. I want to make it clear that attendee safety is our first job at this year's convention and trade show. So a few safety protocols that relates to COVID will be in place. First, we want to ensure that we are monitoring the ongoing developments and policy changes that will follow safety precautions in place at the time of the conference. Second, we are working closely with the Phoenix Convention Center and the Sheraton Phoenix downtown and our partners and vendors to ensure that we provide a safe environment for everybody that meets local, state, building, and CDC recommendations. And then finally, as we get closer to the date of the conference, we'll provide updates and encourage you to check the IBEC website for information as it becomes available. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to anyone on the IBEC team and any questions you may have. So I look forward to seeing you all in Phoenix. I can't wait to see everybody. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Amy, and who's going to give the report on the Secretary Treasurer.
Thanks, Chris. And I hope to see everyone in Phoenix this September. As Scott pointed out, it has been a challenging year for many of you and IBEC as well. However, I am pleased to report that with the strong staff management that we were able to keep IBEC's finances in the black during this year, where our revenue was down 21% from previous year and 30% from our 2020 approved budget. The staff did a great job on managing the expense side of the budget, which allowed IBEC to balance the budget by the end of the year. We did see increased revenue in registrations, publication sales, and in our new CEH provider program. We're looking forward to a strong 2021 as the economy rebounds. Now I'm happy to introduce Mike Clark, the chair of IBEC Nominating Committee, for the report of the nominating committee and provide the election results. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Clark, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the IBEC Nominating Committee. Because of the pandemic, we had to modify how we conducted the 2021 IBEC election. All balloting was done electronically, and we weren't able to have our normal filling out by hand of last-minute ballot voting during the annual meeting of the members. We did hold a candidate forum for executive committee candidates, and this was made available to all members on the IBEC website. I hope many of you were able to either attend that candidate forum when it was broadcast live as a webinar, or to later view the candidate forum by downloading it off of the IBEC website. The election of the IBEC board occurs in two phases. Phase one is the election for region directors. That election ended on January 25th. Phase two is the election for the executive committee. That election ended today at noon. During the time when electronic balloting was open, every eligible voting member of IBEC received emails with instructions on how to vote. Every eligible voting member received these emails until they voted. The final reminder email for the executive committee election was sent out only just this morning. And so now, without further ado, the results of the 2021 election. Region directors are Julie Palmer, Region 1 Director; Mike Fell, Region 2 Director; Charlie Seatman, Region 3 Director; Jennifer Hogan, Region 7 Director. For the Executive Committee, Chris Giffen will serve as your first Vice President and Amy Peavy as your second VP. And the winner for IBEC Secretary Treasurer is Robert J. Hinojosa. Thanks to all the candidates for running in this year's election and for their willingness to serve IBEC. Now I'd like to entertain a motion to destroy ballots. I recognize Bob Card.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ballots be destroyed at this time.
We have a motion to destroy the ballots at this time. Do we have a second? I recognize Stephanie Robinson.
This is Stephanie Robinson. I second the motion.
We have a motion to destroy the ballots and a second. You will now, as members, have an opportunity to vote on this motion on your computer screen. There should be a window open with the motion and a yes or no radio button. We'll give everyone a minute or so to vote. Please do so at this time. The motion to destroy the ballot has passed. Carolyn Baber, please destroy the ballots. It's now my pleasure to introduce IBEC's Executive Vice President and CEO, Brian Palash, who will be providing the State of the Association.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your help as serving this association as the nominating committee chair. And first of all, I just want to welcome everyone to this, as Scott said, second annual meeting of the members, if you will, virtually. I am hopeful that we are no longer going to have a virtual meeting of the members, at least not solely. And I guess I would have said a year ago, as we were discussing how we were going to address the pandemic, I'm relatively certain, in fact, I'm 100% certain that I didn't think we would be back here being virtual still a year later. But yet here we are, and I appreciate all of the help that we've received from our members, and especially from the IBEC staff team to make the year 2020 a modest success by any measure. So Tara, next slide. We thought we'd put a few words down as to how we feel about this year, and those are all words that I'm sure you all have used a number of times. The one word I'd like to call out, though, if there's one word, is resilience. And just to spend 1 minute thanking the IBEC staff team. It has been a very challenging year for all of us. We've obviously mostly worked at home. I am luckily for the last couple of months been able to come to the office a little bit, but primarily we've been focused on working at home. And I actually think the staff team has grown stronger, and we've grown as a team much better, interestingly, as the time we've been away. Next slide. A couple notes about the things that occurred through our leadership and operations. We actually moved this year. That's our building there on the right part of the screen. We moved from West Raleigh. We are now in downtown Raleigh, and we are thrilled with our new staff location, our new office location, and urge everyone, if they're in Raleigh, to come and visit once we are fully open and back with a full staff on site. We did that while we were in the pandemic, which was an interesting thing to do, I'm sure you can imagine. I would also call out from a leadership perspective the work of the board of directors and the executive committee. We had to meet probably more than we've met before, simply to address a number of the large decisions that had to be made. Things like, well, do we have the meeting in person? Do we not have the meeting in person? How do we take this organization virtually with some of our education activities? And so I can't thank them enough for the work that they've done, the support they gave the staff, and their ability to get on a Zoom call or a GoToMeeting call and really help us guide the organization in this unprecedented time. I'd also like to call out and highlight the fact that IBEC created a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force. That task force has begun its work, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully we will be able to share with you some of that work in September when we see everybody in Phoenix. Next slide. We can't talk about this year unless we talk about the fact that the things that we did with our normal, what I would consider the big meetings, the trade show and convention, the Canadian Building and Closure Symposium, as well as the BES, the Building and Closure Symposium Plus, as we called it at the end of November. The fact that we were able to take these events virtually, and the fact that you all participated and joined us, to the sponsors and exhibitors that stayed with us for those meetings. We can't thank you enough. Not only was that a benefit to the members who were participating in those meetings, but it also helped IBEC financially to make up for some of the lost revenue by not having those events in person. So we feel very, very thankful, and we feel very strongly that those meetings came off very well. We've gotten a continuing amount of support and praise from folks who've participated. We're gonna do one more all virtual meeting, and that's our virtual spring symposium. That's going to be the entire month of May. You can look for information on that on the website, and hopefully that will be the last large, if you will, all virtual meeting. Next slide. We also were able to pivot, if you will, going back to one of those words, and take most of our normal education and bring it all online. And so some of those courses that some of you would travel for, a 2-day course, a 1-day course, we were able to take some of those and put them online. We were also able to update some of those classes and bring them a little bit further into the current state of practice. So we were happy about that. And as you can see, the number of users through our online portal, which is the Learn Upon portal, jumped dramatically in the last year as you all were seeking education and CEHs. So thank you for participating in those things. Next slide. Communications. I'll take 1 minute and hopefully we'll be able to celebrate Chris in Phoenix, but I will take 1 minute and highlight the fact that we did have one of our staff team retire this year. Chris Ammerman, who was our long-serving director of communications and the executive editor of Interface, retired around Labor Day after spending 24 years working with IIBEC, and we thank her for her service. We have been able to continue publishing Interface, and we think it's as good as ever. And as you can see, we've increased the number of social media followers. And in fact, you can see the bump that we had in website visits as a result of the fact that we've redone IIBEC.org as our flagship website. Next slide. For our technical services activities, the main focus this year has been to produce and get out the IIBEC Manual of Practice. As you can see, that is for sale now. We've sold about 180 copies of that Manual of Practice. And I would note to everyone who's participating in the meeting today, you all received a coupon for $50 off that Manual of Practice, and our newest publication, which is the second edition of the publication on roof drainage. That publication is available for purchase now, and it will be delivered, if you're buying it virtually, it will be delivered within the next week, and it may take a little bit longer if you want the printed copy. In addition to that, we formed a new Codes and Standards Committee, which will allow us to be a little more focused and ready to address codes and standards issues as they come up, not only at the ICC level, which is the national level, but also at local levels, as you all are addressing code changes in your own local areas. Next slide. Membership was an area where I will admit it was a struggle this year, and I would applaud our membership team for focusing on this and really driving home the value of IIBEC membership, but also reminding folks that they should renew their membership. As you can see, membership is down a little bit at the end of 2020 and compared to 2019. I will let everyone know at the beginning, the first 2 months of this year, we have already seen an uptick in membership, and we're pretty confident that by the end of 2020, we're going to be able to surpass that number that we had in 2019. So we sort of turned the corner on that, and we're feeling pretty strongly that we're going to be able to be successful in having gone past where we were in 2019. Next slide. One key area of growth, interestingly, this is, I guess, a little bit in part for people who were sort of stuck at home more during the pandemic, was we actually saw an increase in the number of people who were registered with IIBEC's registrations this year. You can see that number went up a little bit from 2018 all the way to 2086. We saw more applications, and we feel strongly that that's going to continue to grow. People really understand the value of those registrations, and that's proven by the fact that continues to increase. In addition, as was mentioned in the finance report, we do have the new CEH provider program, whereby organizations can apply to get their courses pre-approved. And we had 43 organizations that joined us in that program this year, and we're excited that that program took off and was so successful in its first year. Many of you have been waiting for this, and this is the Building Commissioning Provider Certification, or CBECXP, as it rolls off the tongue. I'm pleased to report that in the next few months, the application is going to be available for you all to fill out and to apply for sitting for that exam. And we feel that by the late third quarter, early fourth quarter, we will have the first folks taking that test and becoming certified with that CBECXP. The certification is starting the process of getting ISO 17024 accreditation, and we expect that process to go in parallel with our releasing the exam and the ability to apply for that. It was a definitely trying year for our regions and chapters. I will say some of the highlights of our chapters program this year was the fact that we were able to take our chapter leadership development classes that we normally do in October over a day and a half in Raleigh. We were able to take that virtual, and 22 chapters participated in that activity. And that means those chapters will be stronger and better for the future. We did have a couple of highlights, if you will. We started a Mexico City branch this year, as well as an Alabama branch and a West Michigan branch, and the Arizona chapter, or had been a branch, became a chapter. And so we're excited about that. And all of those leadership modules that I talked about that we did for the leadership virtual meeting are now all available to chapter leaders on an ongoing basis. So if you missed something or you want to go back and be reminded on what we talked about at those meetings, those are all available right now as of today. So if you need help with that, just reach out to Tara. In addition, we revamped the chapter awards program, and even more chapters are applying for that than we've had in the past. So they're filling out those forms. Next slide. Public policy was an interesting activity this year. We were obviously not able to get to Washington, D.C. as much and chat with our legislators the way we would have liked to. However, we were able to pass a couple of pieces of legislation and defeat one bill. In Virginia, working with our local Virginia chapter, we were able to defeat some legislation relating to cooperative procurement. That was back at the beginning of the year. And then at the very end of the year, we were able to get a couple pieces of legislation as part of the final bill that was passed. One was report language instructing GSA to follow the current law for architecture, engineering, and design procurement, and then legislation that we've been working on for a while to actually ban reverse auctions for federal procurement of construction and design services. So we are happy with that. I'm also happy to report that, and as some of you know, Brian Gardner retired in the fall, and we've, as of today, we have a new director of government relations. His name is John Bowling. He will be making himself known in the coming weeks. Today is his first day. This is one of the first things he's done, is coming to this annual meeting of the members. So we want to welcome John, and we're thrilled to have him as part of the IIBEC staff team. Next slide. Last but not least is a little bit of discussion on the success of the RCI IIBEC foundations this year. Probably one of the biggest things we did, the foundation did, is lend support to the Joe Hale Public Library of Fort Chiswell, Virginia. The foundation provided some seed money for that effort to get underway in Virginia, and then all of you stepped up and provided an additional $40,000+ to match what IIBEC had already, or the RCI IIBEC Foundation had already done, and that library has now become a reality and is moving forward. So that was a big success that we had, and we are thrilled with that. And with that, I will end my report on the State of the Association. state of the association is good, and we are thrilled with where we are and looking forward to seeing all of you again in Phoenix in September. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott to get some comments and questions from all of you.
So it took me a second to get back through this, but I want all of you all to know, I was kind of looking through the attendees. If you're here, we can see you're attending and participating. But what I want to make note of is that we have got a lot of former board members, a lot of former presidents that are on this call today. And since we have you all somewhat captive, I did want to say thank you so much. I mean, it's because of all of the previous efforts that we get to sit here today and have this meeting. So I'm impressed that each of you is still engaged. And we certainly appreciate your continuance of supporting the organization. So thanks so much. We're glad you're here. And with that, I want to bring Ted and Brian back in. We've got a couple questions. We don't have very many. I was hoping that there would be like some really hard questions, and I could do like Sid Hankins did several years ago, where he received a really hard question as outgoing president, and he kicked it over to Jean-Guy to be the one, give him an opportunity to respond to an extremely difficult question. Ted, I was wanting to do that for you, and I'll check these questions now, but I don't know that I see.
I'll take on the hard question. Awesome. It's true what Jennifer Hogan mentioned. There's also a new Quebec, Ontario chapter, which is officially starting in 2021. It's in my home area, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal for us. It's a chapter where we're going to be trying to use 2 languages to communicate to our IBEC members. So real challenge, and thanks to Stephanie, Michelle, and everyone else who contributed to the formation.
All right, so with that, I'm going to jump right into the questions, and I'm reading these as they're being sent in, and a bunch of them have come in here recently, and I'm going to just take them kind of in order. And I'm going to start with the first one, and I'm going to give Ted and Brian an opportunity to elaborate a little bit on it. But the question is, what is IBEC's specific definition of equity, and how will this be applied in IBEC? So just from my point of view, words, we use words sometimes, and they mean different things to different people. And even though we may have said equity earlier, it may have been used in a different context, but the actual name of the task force was the Task Force on Diversity and Inclusion. And for those of you who have been here for more than 4 or 5 years, you remember we had a member study performed several years ago and determined that, you know, our membership was largely male, it was largely Caucasian. And what we're trying to figure out with this group, are there blind spots that we don't know that we have? It's hard for me and Brian and Ted to sit here and say, yeah, here's what we need to do. We don't know that, but are we doing something as an organization that is not attracting different races, females to our organization? And that's what we want to know. I'm not going to be good at figuring that out. So I'm the last person that needs to be spearheading that. But I do acknowledge the fact that maybe we have an issue that we need to address. So our intent with this task force is to figure out, are we doing something that's not attracting others to our organization? Because we do want to be inclusive. We want to be welcoming of all professionals, regardless of background. And we want to learn what we can do better to help make that happen. Some people say this is a sensitive subject. To me, it's not sensitive at all. I think we need to just splay it all out there and admit that maybe we've had shortcomings in the past. And it's time to get beyond, acknowledge those, and let's do better. I think we can all learn from that. So, Brian and Ted, I'll turn it over to you if either of you have anything to add to that.
Well, the one thing I can say, Scott, is that, I think IBEC is starting to lead by example in that respect, as well as having the task force in place now and very active at that. You'll see that we're adding another region director who's a female, and that's going to give us the most gender balanced board of directors that IBEC has ever had. So I do believe there's been progress and there will be more progress.
Yeah, Scott, I won't belabor this. I would simply say that that's part of what the task force is going to work on is putting those sorts of definitions together, and they've already started that process.
So I do see, and I can see that a lot of people, we're getting questions come in here, but I also see that you all may have an opportunity up there to click the raise your hand thing. It's difficult to see because I'll tell you this right now, we have 433 people participating in this event right now, which is pretty awesome. But we're not going to call on you individually. So if you have your hand raised, I've got to scroll through 433 different people to see who has hands raised. If I would suggest you grab the question box and ask your question there, we'll be able to answer it better because those will pop up right in front of us.
So Scott, I see one that's pretty easy to answer. It's asking whether or not we can, what's the backup plan if we can't meet in person and in Phoenix? And I've learned through this process of the pandemic that you need to have a backup plan, and then your backup plan should have another backup plan. So the short answer to the question is that we have always presumed that we would have a hybrid meeting. And in that, what we mean by that is have a virtual and a in-person component to this meeting in Phoenix. I will say I'm feeling better today from a US perspective for the ability for enough people to be vaccinated by September 15th that we can meet in person, but admittedly, I'm not a doctor or a public health official, and I'm not going to be making those kinds of decisions for Phoenix, Arizona. But we do have a plan. If we can't all be together, then we will absolutely we will default, if you will, to a virtual meeting. But my sense is that at this point it would be hybrid. So some people may not be comfortable and traveling or doing that, and they would have access to the same content virtually.
Brian, and I'll let you take this one too. I do see someone asking about the 2020 presentations. Is there a way to make those available for those who attended with the rescheduling of time and availability? They weren't able to participate in those events.
We'll take that one offline, and I'll have to figure that out with the staff team, Scott. How's that?
Okay, perfect.
I can answer one here, Scott. Someone has asked about the manual of practice and wants to be convinced to purchase one. And I'll give this answer. I was formerly involved in some of the exam writing subcommittees. And one of the problems we always had in those committees was finding references for the common sense questions that we felt were necessary for consultants to know that we wanted to put on the exam. And a lot of times, the only place we could find a common sense answer that provided guidance was in our manual of practice. And that was when we were in the second version. I can't remember which version it was, but this was 5 or 10 years ago now. The new one is improved in several ways, and it's going to have all those answers and more, and it's just a great fundamental tool for some of those things you can't find anywhere else.
Awesome. There are several questions about quorum. Do we have enough people here? Like I said earlier, we have 435. It's 428 now. Evidently, the three of us ran a few people off. But the staff will run reports at the end of the session, and all of that will be listed on the website. But we don't have any reason to believe that we don't have a quorum. Let's see, what else here? Brian, this is still more towards you, and maybe you sort of hit on it. At what point would the in-person meeting be called off? That's difficult to answer that, but it would certainly be in time to notify everyone to alter travel plans. You know, we're a little hamstrung. But Brian, you go ahead with. Listen, I'm going to be there in September. Even if Brian says the meeting's canceled, I'm going.
You know, Scott, I think, again, I will say what I said a year ago when I was getting these same questions about meeting in Houston in 2020. We have to follow the public health guidelines, right? I mean, safety is important. I will say Karen and Mindy, who are our meetings team, are spending plenty of time understanding where we are from a public health standpoint with meetings, and have been in contact with the Phoenix Convention Center, have been in contact with the downtown Sheraton there in Phoenix, and I feel very comfortable that between what the city of Phoenix and those two entities are going to do, the convention center and the hotel, we'll be able to make a decision in the right way. I lean a little bit towards you, Scott, and that I feel strongly that we're going to be able to be there. And I'm bullish on that, shall we say. I think that's going to happen, but at this point we will make the decision as quickly as we can. But as anyone who's tried to do meetings this year, there's more than there's lots of decision. There's lots of inputs to the decision, and some of it's contractual and legal, et cetera. So it's not so simple.
So, okay, there's a couple of them that I'm going to try to combine, let's see. One of them is why not combine the convention and BES. We're planning a fall symposium as well for our monthly meetings and symposiums. Can presentations qualify for AI? It's a little different, but Brian, you're going to take them all. Why not combine the convention and the BES? I think there's enough similarity between the two. The convention is generally, there's more offerings, and there's a more broad range of offerings of different technical subjects. So I'm not sure that the only thing I think we would do by doing that is maybe increase the number of presentations, which might require larger space and whatnot. But there's still a lot being decided right now. But Brian, you go ahead and take that.
So the decision was made to actually do the virtual spring symposium, and that is effectively taking the place of this year's BES, primarily because it wasn't going to be possible for us to produce two large meetings in the span of about 6 weeks. And so we made that decision with consulting with the executive committee, and that virtual spring symposium, like I said, is set for May. It's going to be every Tuesday and Thursday in May. The list of presentations, there are 9 presentations that have been approved. It's going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but there are 9 presentations. Those should be live on the website today or tomorrow, putting a little pressure on the IIBEC staff team there. I do know that one of those presentations is going to be about the ethics and code of ethics for IIBEC. Led by our ethics committee, but that was the decision that was made.
So there was a previous question here about does IIBEC list membership with diversity classifications, women-owned, disabled, Black-owned, etc. And a follow-up, are there any plans on chasing this topic? Honestly, I don't know, and that's why we created the task force, and that's what we want them to tell us. Everything. This is all really in their hands, and they can make recommendations to the board of directors on how they think we ought to proceed. But I'll say that all cards are on the table right now. We'll consider everything, and we just want to make sure that we've considered all angles of what we do, and we want to show to everyone that we're welcoming of everyone. So
I think, Scott, one of the first things folks will see that the diversity committee has, and I would say that that's a result of us being involved in addressing these issues, is we've partnered with the National Institute of Building Sciences in a what I would call a large diversity survey. There are about a dozen or 15 organizations in the built environment that have partnered with NIBS on this survey. AIA, and the American Society of Civil Engineers, just to name two of the larger ones, BOMA and CSI, a couple of other names that you all well may know. And we expect that survey, that the instrument, the tool, to be completed this week. And IBEC members will get an email from IBEC explaining how to fill out the survey and where to go to fill out the survey. And that will give us some information about what our members think about diversity, which is actually also going to help that diversity task force do some of its work. So
there's two questions here related to the timing of the annual convention and possibly combining the building enclosure symposium and the convention. And I'm gonna try to take these as one single question, but since we're moving the annual convention back to September, the question is, is that going to be our plan going forward, or will we get back to the March timeline? And then what's the opportunity for in the future combining, if we're going to do a fall convention, what's the opportunity of combining the two? Brian, I don't want to take words out of your mouth, and I'll be off the board, but man, if we could be in Phoenix right now, we would be in Phoenix right now. And I think our goal is to return to the normal as quickly as possible. September seemed to be the earliest that anybody could do anything. We heard a lot from our members saying that they were locked out of travel definitely for the first quarter, possibly for the second quarter. And so we had to make a decision based on what our members could do. And that decision had to be made early. So I do think that the intent is to go back to, the spring convention, fall symposium. But again, we're open to changing things up in whatever's in our members' best interest. So, Brian?
Well, I mean, some of this is already predetermined because we have contracts. So that makes this decision a little bit easier. We will be, obviously this year is Phoenix and we're going to be in September, but we are moving back to the March timeframe at a minimum. And I say at a minimum because this is what we have contracted, right? So that's the first thing. Through 2024, we will be in Florida in 2022. At the hotel you all have been to before. We will be in Houston in 2023. That's in early March 2nd through 7th. And then in 2024, we are back in Phoenix in the March timeframe, March 7th through the 12th. So that's sort of where we are at this point. And it's possible we could have discussions outside of that, but that is the current thinking.
We have a question that was answered internally, I believe, but I want to ask it anyway. What plans does IBEC have to reach out to universities and colleges to raise awareness of the opportunities the organization and the building enclosure industry offers?
So part of what we're doing is what we've done for a number of years is using the foundation and their work with students to raise that information and engage with university students that way. But I think we also need to take a look and see how we can reach directly out to universities and engineering departments and architecture departments, schools to better have them understand what IBEC is and some of the tools and resources that we have, not only for their students, but also for some of the professors and others involved in that. And there are other schools as well, but I'm just mentioning that those two disciplines at this point.
Let's see here. Will there be a report from the foundation? We do not have a report from the foundation for this. Brian, I have not been in contact with the foundation. I don't know if one will be distributed electronically after this, so I'll defer to whatever you have to say.
Yeah, we gave a summary, and I'm seeing a blurb from Mike Blanchette, who's the new president of the RCI IBEC Foundation, who wanted to say that he expresses a great deal of gratitude for everyone for continuing to support the foundation in a very difficult year, and all of us have stepped up, and he sends his thank you for that.
Can you overview the key objectives planned for 21-22? So several years ago, we dusted off and updated and made some fairly fundamental changes to our strategic plan. Just because it was dated, right? And so that's sort of our roadmap for the future. That document is available on the website, and we haven't strayed from that. And I don't think there's any big changes to that, but that's what we want to wake up every morning and recite to ourselves. This is why we're doing this. This is our end goal. In a couple of years, we'll update that again just to see if the goals have changed. But from a high level, it's kind of hard for me to tell you everything that's on that. But that is our playbook, and that's on the website. Brian, any specific key issues you want to highlight with that?
Well, I would certainly say the work that we're doing to create this certification, so the CBECXP certification for the building commissioning provider, is something that was focused on a couple of years ago, and it's going to come to fruition and be released and out in the world, if you will, and we can have people putting those initials after their names. I think that's a key thing. I think you'll see some progress in the area of public policy. With regards to we've fixed or improved a little bit the way we develop policy within IIBEC, so you'll see a little bit more structure, and that should lend us ourselves to being better advocates on behalf of the profession, both at the federal level in the United States, also at the state and local level in the United States, but also, and I know it's near to Ted, doing some advocacy work up in Canada. I know one of the things we had talked about and what was to get that started in 2020, and then there's the pandemic, and so like a lot of things that's in a little bit of stoppage, if you will, but we are looking forward to moving forward with that in 2021. And I also think there's really a focus in large part to create better member value, if we will, for the members of IIBEC, and be that source, if you will, of technical information for the building enclosure, right? That's IIBEC's main goal, and whether it's through doing things like the publication of the roof drainage publication, that's the second edition's coming out, the manual of practice, and just improving the tools that we already provide for you, whether it's interface or things like that.
And I'll add to that, one of the things that we've developed this year, really Scott's idea, and we've really got it into good shape, is to help create goals and objectives for Brian based directly on that strategic plan, on each element of the plan. And that's a great roadmap and a great measurement tool that we can see how we're going through the year and at the end of the year.
All right, well, I lied. I said I wouldn't mention names of asking questions, but I am going to mention a name. And I zone out when I'm reading these. I know, Brian, you mentioned Mike Blanchette a little while ago. I don't think that you had seen his question, but I want to read what Mike says. It's not a question, it's a comment. He says, Mike, as chairman of the foundation, he says he would like to express a special thanks as chairman of the foundation for all the donations received this year. We've been worried during these uncertain times, but membership has really stepped up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to Mike Blanchette, for those of you who may not know, Mike is one of those former presidents who happens to be on this call. So Mike, thank you, thank you, thank you. There's a comment about us going back to Rose and Shingle Creek. We go there over and over. I'm not the best one to answer this, but I do know in the years that I've been on the board, I've heard the discussions that our organization is sort of at a weird size, where our options, because we're too big for some places and too small for other places, our options are sometimes limited, especially when we're competing with larger organizations. I have found personally that the Rose and Shingle Creek has been a fantastic place, but that's just my perspective. They've always done a good job of taking care of us, but I do think, and Brian can speak more to this, we're always open to other options. But that one just seems to keep coming up as a place that knows us and we know them. And it's been, I hate to say we're taking the easy route, because I don't think we are, but we're taking a route that we know, they know what to expect from us and we know what to expect from them. Brian, anything for you to add?
You know, I would only add that we've got some open dates in years out, and I've heard some of the concerns from the membership on this issue of the rotation of the convention, and hopefully for our next open date it will be I would suggest the goal will be something new. How's that? Without being too committal at this point. You know, we sometimes in these things, you know, for example, we did 2 conventions in Phoenix because we got you get a little better deal if you say you're going to come back again, and that's beneficial to IBEC. I know we hadn't been to Phoenix in a while, so that's 21 and 24. So, but that's it. There's a lot of things that go into choosing where we go. And there is a desire to be somewhere warm at that time of year, I'm told.
I got to scroll through the attendees here. Let's see if I can find this. Oh man. All right, I don't see his name on there, but there is a question that says, where is our most distant attendee from? We don't know that, but many of you don't know. We can see the attendee list, and there's like a little notice besides some of you that says not attentive. So I might think that some of you are the most distant attendees of today's meeting. But we don't know. Unfortunately, we don't know where everyone's coming from. But we do have international members, and I suspect that there may be some of those on this meeting. Any thoughts about IBEC advocating for a 4-year college degree program on building enclosure? That's a toss-up. Who wants it?
I'll start it. The good news is that there are 4-year degrees in building enclosure. Where we've seen them in Canada is starting at community colleges, and they basically take some community college knowledge and build on that with additional courses. And we've actually, in our practice, we've actually hired, and there's other firms that are members have also hired people with a Bachelor of Building Science degree, which is a 4-year degree. So that kind of thinking is coming into the education system, and I think you know, there's probably room for more of that.
Thank you, Ted. And this is along the same lines. I suggested recruiting members by starting a college level IBEC program similar to what other organizations do, such as ASCE. Is there any progress on this front? Obviously, with many college-age kids not being able to attend school in person for the last year, this could have put a kink in the system. Again, all options are on the table. You know, I do think it's important because we did talk about diversity and inclusion, but today is International Women's Day, Monday, March 8th. And thank you to the commenter for bringing that up, to making sure that we mention that. I don't see any other questions. I don't know if there's any in here that I've missed. I've tried to go through all of them. I really think this has been good participation, not nearly as good as what I think we could get in person. But I certainly appreciate everyone taking the time to type their questions in, and I don't think I'm missing anything. So we're going to move on. We will have where is lunch? All right, now it's deteriorating. So I tell you what we're going to do. We will move on, and I will jump right into introducing the 2021-2022 IBEC Board of Directors, and I thank all of you for your commitment to serving the organization. I look forward to serving with each of you on my last year on the board. First off, we got the region directors, and Mike Clark mentioned it earlier. Julie Palmer serving as the director of Region 1. Mike Fell serving as the director of Region 2. Charlie Seatman, director of Region 3. Neil Johnson will continue his term as the director of Region 4. Simon Zinkowitz will continue serving as director of Region 5. Bert Carver, Region 6, continuing his term. And Jennifer Hogan will also continue her term as the director of Region 7. And for the 2021-22 IBEC Executive Committee, as Mike mentioned earlier, Robert Hinojosa will come on board as Secretary Treasurer. Welcome Robert back to the board. This will be his second term on the Executive Committee. Amy Peavy will serve as the second Vice President. Chris Giffen will serve as the first Vice President. I will stay on the Executive Committee as the past President. And Ted Sheridan will serve as the 2021-2022 IBEC President. With that, I want to say congratulations to Ted. I look forward to serving under your leadership. It's been a pleasure serving all of you. I appreciate your support, and I look forward to good things to come. And Ted, it's all yours, baby.
Thank you, Mr. Hinesley. And what Scott said about bringing bad luck to the organization, that's hogwash. I think Scott walks around with the horseshoe pointing up. So you're catching all the good luck for us, Scott, and keep doing it. IBEC's gotten pretty sly about adding new blood to the board of directors and not letting the good ones get off the hook too quickly. Julie, Charlie, Michael, great to have you aboard in what's going to be, as I mentioned, the most gender-balanced board of directors this organization has ever assembled. Jean, Chris, and Robert, special thanks to you for wanting to give even more. You've already given so much already, and for throwing your hats in the ring this year. And special congrats, Robert, for your election against some stiff and qualified opposition. With that, there's a few folks whose time on the board has come to an end. Mike Violet and Jean Keaton and Chris Dawkins, you can take some great pride that you've helped steer IBEC through some tough times and have helped make some very important decisions for the organization. Thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom with us. I'd like to send a special personal shout out to Bob Card, who is leaving the board after giving his all to IBEC for what seems like 40 years, maybe. Slight exaggeration, maybe. If we could all be a little bit more like Bob, you know, to quote James Taylor or Steely Dan, what a wonderful world it would be. Bob, I know you're a technology geek. Sometime before the pandemic, I picked up a little something for you. It's a little out of date now, though. It's a BlackBerry swag bag. It's got all kinds of cool BlackBerry stuff in it for you. Water bottle. It's even got like a friendship bracelet. I'm wearing mine today, just thinking of you. Here it is. Here's my friendship bracelet. Isn't that cool? But seriously, Bob, thank you so much for your guidance and support. You've been such a mentor to me, and we're going to miss you, but we're going to have you around, and we know where to find you. You've all heard from Brian that IBEC is on solid footing, and I believe that we're headed in some new and exciting directions. IBEC this year has provided some needed industry stability and leadership, and I'm really pleased that our education programs, our advocacy efforts, those sort of value proposition items for our members are going to get a real needed shot in the arm with our new staff additions and some new industry partnerships that we have. To finish up, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's annual meeting of the members. Please don't forget the two important upcoming events we have. Virtual Spring Symposium, which will take place every Tuesday and Thursday in May. We've got 9 educational sessions from a host of contributors. Register now at ibec.org. And also, of course, the convention in Phoenix this September, 15th to 20th. I'm crossing my fingers that I can be there. You can get more details on that at the IBEC website. And I guess with those two announcements, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Amy Peavy. I motion that we adjourn the annual meeting of the members.
Thank you, Amy. Can someone second that motion?
The first second that came in was from Dave Balistreri, so he seconded the motion.
Thanks from wherever you are, Dave. Appreciate that. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Hearing none opposed, I declare that the 2021 IBEC Annual General Meeting of the members is adjourned. Thank you for your participation today.